My name is Pat Norling, and I work for the Brookline Health Department.
Tell me a little about you.
I was born in Brookline, way back when. Went to Brookline High, and I've been working at the Brookline Health Department since 1993, going on 22 years.
Tell me what happened.
My daughter Jennifer Lynch was murdered back in 2006 by her husband of 10 years. I don't know whether it was a jealousy type thing or what, but she went to the hospital. She wanted to have children, and she couldn't have children, and she went into the hospital on Valentine's Day that year, and she had some surgery done, and he didn't even come and pick her up. And she called me and said that the surgery went fine and that she was going to go home and take a shower. And she called me 2 days before that and asked if I could loan her some money because she and her husband decided that they were going to break up. She decided that she was going to move out with her dog and her cat. And it was supposed to be mutual, but when she came home from the hospital, it's the assumption that I have, and my son, that she took her shower, but he went in with a gun and shot her 3 times in the chest while she was taking her shower. And we didn't know until 2 days later. Somebody called from work saying that she didn't show up for work, and so he left a note and on the dresser saying that I killed my wife Jennifer, I killed myself, we had problems, and my dog is in the backyard. And so the person that called the police and said something, and they couldn't do anything about it because she wasn't family, so she called my daughter and my son. And my son went over first, he got there first, and he went into the house, and he found him on the bed with the gun in his hand. He had killed himself, and he couldn't find Jennifer anywhere. And so finally he opened the bathroom door. He walked into the bathroom and found his sister in the bathtub.
How do you even...
It's not an easy thing. My son had to call me to tell me, first of all, that he found his sister. And when he called me, he says, "Mom, I have something to tell you." He says, "Jennifer's gone." And I said, "Well, where'd she go?" I said, "I sent her some money." And he said, "No, she's dead." And I just, of course, lost it at the time. And so we were trying to get a flight out of Boston because it was in Oregon that it happened. And so I tried to get a flight out, and it was so hard trying to get anything that time of day and at night. And I went, my nephew had been calling all kinds of airlines. My girlfriend was on the phone, he was on the computer, and finally got something, and it was just 2 seats left. I got to the airport, and the stewardess was wonderful, but the person at the desk, I went up there and I said, "I need to, I have reserved 2 tickets, and I need you to help me, please." And she's, "Go over to the kiosk." And I just lost it. I burst out crying. And I said, "Look, my daughter was murdered. I need to get to Oregon. Can you please help me?" And then she was very helpful. But it cost over almost $4,000 to fly out there. That wasn't even coming back. That was one way for my husband and I. So by the time I got out there, everything was set. My son wouldn't go near the funeral home. My daughter wouldn't go near the funeral home. So I went there by myself with my husband, and they were very, very nice there. And it took me a while before I could, I was just trying to do everything right. because I'm kind of like a laid-back person. You know, I was very introverted for years until Jennifer kept yelling at me and telling me to be outgoing, speak up. So I decided that's when I was going to speak up.
Um, do you, I mean, obviously, you know your son-in-law. Did you suspect mental illness, or?
We didn't expect anything at the time, but there were things that I noticed years before that Jennifer came and took care of me. I had a double knee replacement in 2004, and she came and took care of me, and she brought the dog with her. And he wasn't going to come, you know, he wasn't going to do anything like that, but he finally decided. They sold the house, and he came. But it was kind of strange because he kept on saying that he was going for a job. He went for a job interview. He had 2 jobs by the time he was there in 3 months. And we noticed something that was weird. And Jennifer came out of the bedroom one night, and she was sitting in the chair, and she said, "Mom, I can't breathe right." You know, I thought she was probably having a heart attack. And I said, "Let's go to the hospital." She said, "No, no, no, I'll be fine. This happened before." So she sat in the chair for a while, and I sat with her. And she kept telling me to go to bed. And I said, "No, I'm going to sit here with you until you're ready to go to bed." And so back then I didn't realize. I thought it was just that she was, because her biological father died at 42 from heart problems. And so I thought she was having something like that. And then a couple of days later, we were playing softball with the Brookline Day, and Jennifer, I said to Jennifer, I said, "We're going to play," and she says, "I'll play," and I said, "Well, I want to play too," you know, and she says, "Well, you can't run," and I said, "Well, you can run for me," and she said, "No, I can't because Gary broke my leg, broke my ankle." And I said, "What do you mean he broke your ankle?" And she said, "Well, we were wrestling and he fell on my ankle." And so it was just little things like that came back that I didn't realize that were detrimental to her being hurt in any way. Because he was so nice to me every time I saw him. He called me Mom. He says, I worship the ground you walk on. You were better than my own mom, and you know, all this high accolades, and not knowing that it was just a facade. You know, he's just playing me like they do, you know, the power and the control over her, but making me look like I was the best thing, and never saying how much he loved Jennifer, or you know, how good she was or anything. The journey was very hard at the beginning. To be honest with you, I just wanted to die. I could care less how, or, you know, I wouldn't hurt anybody in any way, but I just could not see myself living without my youngest child. Although I had 2 others, that's what kept me going. I have 4 grandchildren and my 2 other children, and each day it was so hard getting up, and you know, I'd go to bed at night and I'd take a sleeping pill because I couldn't sleep. It was hard. I kept on trying to figure out why, and I went to one of my priests, and I said, "I don't know how I'm going to get through this." And he says, "Do you think you can forgive him?" And I said, right at the moment, no, I can't. And so I went to counseling for a while. I went to a couple of different ones, and I just couldn't find one that fit me. And finally I did find one, and she was just amazing. And she helped me through a lot because I felt guilty because I couldn't talk Jennifer into staying with me and just letting him go back to Oregon. And she just couldn't. She says, Mom, this is my husband. I married him for better, for worse. And when she got back there, I didn't know anything was going on, what she was going to do, and go back to work because she had exceptional job. She worked for Intel. And but trying to go through talking to her friends, I had a service out there for her, which I got through, which I couldn't believe, and they all couldn't believe how I went through it. And then I had a service here at St. Mary's for her because that's where she was baptized. And, she's fourth generation Brookline. They were all born here, my kids. And so going through my church and my faith got me through a lot. And then I joined a group of parents who have lost children. And I felt kind of out of place at first because I was the first one with a murdered child. They were all, children that have died of cancer or accidents, so I felt kind of out of place, but they were there at the walk. All those older women that were sitting at the benches, they were from my group. But just getting through it was really hard. I was on medication for a while, and then I just couldn't take that anymore. And I kept on, Jennifer loved dragonflies, and that's how I got through. And Shulan and I designed this pen with Jennifer in mind. It was a dragonfly pen with a purple ribbon saying stop domestic violence. So, but then I started thinking Jennifer was a poet. She did photography. And that's how I got the Jennifer Lynch Committee started with Jerry Tromley, who used to work at the health department. And everybody came on board, Susan Howards, Doreen Gallagher, and that got me through. And I kept saying, okay, Jennifer, now I'm speaking up. And I felt a purpose, I felt that it was my turn to talk to kids, talk to anybody that, so I could help anybody that I could.
You established a foundation. Tell me about what drove you to do that.
I kept thinking about Jennifer and what she would do, because she was a lot like me, but she was more outspoken. And just thinking of keeping her memory alive. And that's what pushed me, because I wanted people to know who she was and what she was capable of doing if she was still here. She was 34 years old when she was murdered. And she always felt like she didn't make a name for herself. And then I figured, well, let's do it, She used to ask me crazy questions. Mom, are you afraid to die? That's another thing that she had said to me. And I said, not really. And I wasn't. And I don't know whether that's my convent background, but just thinking of those little things that she asked me, And then when she did her photography, she was so excited because I bought her a brand new camera that year that she was with me. And I got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, went to Sears and bought this $600 camera for $200 and something. And she just went berserk with it. I mean, she never took a lesson in her life. And some of her pictures, so that's what I did. I took her photos, and I framed them and matted them, and I sold them. So whatever I could get went into the Jennifer Lynch Committee, and everything that, the pens, everything I paid for. And then we had the garden made, and that was the biggest step. I talked to Alan, I talked to the Brookline Community Foundation through Susan Howards and Jerry Tromley, and we got a grant from the Brookline Community Foundation, and we got the garden started. And it's a beautiful garden. We dedicated the bench, the large bench, to It's called the Garden of Remembrance in memory of all Brookline victims of domestic violence.
Where is
And
it?
it's at the health department and the back on Harvard Street side. And then there's a chair for Jennifer, and then there's an empty chair. So, and it's all beautiful, beautifully done. And so when I had Jennifer's, I had Jennifer cremated because that's what she asked for years ago. And so I had some of her ashes put in the garden. And she's also down the Cape. That's where she decided that, she said to me at one time, I was down there with her friends, with my friends, and we stayed at a house down there, and she was so thrilled. She was sleeping up on the second floor, and the water was just coming in. She had the window open, and she said she ran down the stairs, this before I had my knees done because I couldn't go upstairs, and she ran down the stairs and jumped on the bed, and she goes, Mommy, if anything happens to me tomorrow, I want to be cremated and thrown out this window into the water. Well, that's what stuck in my mind. And but I brought her down there and I couldn't throw her out the window because she wouldn't hit the water. It was too from here to like the wall over there. But I brought her down there and put her in the water. So, and that's what she wanted. And then I have her in the garden. But it took a lot. Like I said, I felt like I was doing her, what she wanted. And I didn't care what anybody else thought at the time because this is what she wanted. And so we had the garden done, and then we started having meetings. We had all kinds. We have like Susan Howard's and Doreen Gallagher are co-chairs. Casey Hatchett at the police department is the treasurer, and I'm the founder. And then Steve Bressler used to be the secretary, and he retired. So, but then we have a lot. Shulan, Elaine Joseph from the Rotary. I have a lot of people on the committee that are just, they're all Brookline people, and but they've helped me get everything off the ground, and it's amazing how it's taken off. And then the high school got involved with Doreen Gallagher being there, and I've gone to the high school and I spoke to the teens, and I talked to all the kids the best I can. They started me in February, and it kind of like, I couldn't do it at first, but then I figured, this is very important. Valentine's Day is very important to a lot of people. I don't like it anymore, but I go up and I talk to all the teenagers about teen dating, because Jennifer met her husband as a teenager in a laundromat. And so when I talk to the kids, I talk about teen dating and what they can do and how they can go about. If they have a problem, then they can just go to, talk to another friend or talk to their counselors at the school. And I've helped a few kids that way. So some of them are afraid when I first come in and talk, but I think I don't know whether they're nervous because of the situation, or they're nervous because they don't want to hear, what happened to somebody else. So, but I work around it to let them know, and I bring a picture of her, and sometimes I show a small video of her growing up, because I want them to know who she was, and it was very important to me at the time to let them know that she was a person, and this is how she started out, and she was a happy kid, and but I've helped quite a few people. The teenagers are very important to know, what can happen. I've seen so many teenagers get into trouble, and Jennifer has, as a matter of fact, Jennifer wanted to be a foster parent, and she was for a while. And I don't know how he passed, because they have to go through all kinds of interviews and everything else. But he passed as a parent, and but she loved kids, and there were these 2 kids that she had taken in at one time, and she wanted to adopt them. And the grandmother came for them, but they loved her, and she just did everything for them. She even paid for them to go to, different classes and stuff like that out of her own pocket. But she was a child person, and of my 3 kids, she was the only one that couldn't have children. And it bothered her, and I helped as much as I could, to have shots and to have all this stuff done so she could become pregnant. And she did once, but she lost it.
What do you see for the future?
Well, I see me being here for a while longer, helping as much as I can. We're going to have the walk again next year and continue as long as we can, as long as we can get people to come. So, and then every October we have an event at the garden. October is Domestic Violence Month. So we have an event there, and each time it's a different date, but it's usually the beginning of October. All the donations that we get for the Jennifer Lynch Committee goes to the Brookline Community Foundation. And then it's distributed in different ways. Everything is for education and awareness for domestic violence. And we've donated to a lot of different causes from the time that we got all the money that we had. And, everything that we make, when I sell the pens, when I do anything that's, for Jennifer, it goes right to the Community Foundation. We give the money, if we get cash or we get checks, it goes right to Casey Hatchett. And then she brings it to the community. I'm still battling with forgiving him. I want to, I really do. And another priest said that you should forgive. And I had a hard time with it, but I think I'm at the stage now where I can forgive him. But it's taken a long time. It's been 9 years now, but I think I'm at the stage where I can. I don't hear from his family at all. I've never heard from them, not once. But I guess if I forgive them, they'd have to. My main concern would be to definitely get help. Either call the police, have a best friend. What I've told other people for them to get help if they need it bad is to, you can always go to your town hall and get your birth certificate, get your children's, if you're married, get your children's birth certificate. They won't charge you. Tell them you're in a situation, you need them. I always tell them also to go to a Goodwill and get a suitcase and buy clothes there, if you can afford it. If not, then tell somebody, maybe you can get a loan or something. Pack a suitcase with your clothes and with your children's clothes. Don't put it in your home. Take it to somebody that you trust, a friend or a relative of any kind, because they know exactly what's in your closet. They know exactly what's on your phone. Buy a throwaway phone if you can. If you can't, then go to somebody else's house and make a phone call. But these are all the important things that I learned later by going to different classes and going to like Reach and places like that. Because my main message is, if I can help one person, then I'm happy. And I know I've helped a few. My son, he was the worst for a while. but he's doing much better now. Well, you saw him
Yeah.
but finding her, and he had a hard time, and he finally broke not even a year ago. And he just grabbed me and he said, "Mom, I don't know how you do it." And he burst out crying and he said, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I said, "Why are you sorry?" And he said, "Because I didn't take care of my baby sister." And I said, "That's why I went for counseling." I said, "Because I felt guilty. For 5 years, I felt guilty." And she just told me, she says, "You can't feel that guilt. I mean, you can feel it, but it's not your guilt." She was an adult. She made a choice. And so, and my son, I tried to tell him the same thing. I said, "She made a choice. She was an adult. And, you know," I said, "I love you more than anything, and I don't want anything to happen to you." You know, so I took myself off the medication because I couldn't take it anymore. One of her best friends Jennifer told her that 2 hours he held a gun to her head coming home from the ocean.
He held the gun to Jennifer's head.
While she was driving, he held a gun to her head for 2 hours. And she told her not to tell anybody. She didn't tell me this until after everything happened. That's why I say, if you know anything, if you hear anything, I would rather you tell somebody and lose that friend for a day, a week, a month, even a year, than to lose a friend for life because you didn't say anything. And that's what bothered me most. I mean, we're still good friends. Her daughter is Jennifer's godchild. But, you know, and she keeps telling me today that she's so sorry and that she never said anything. And I said, well, this, unfortunately, is a lesson learned. If you know anybody else, now her son wants me to come out to Oregon and speak at his school. I went, oh, okay. But it's just that, you know, if you know something, speak up, say something. Susan Howard's helped me with the airfare. She went on board. She wrote a letter to the airline and said that, you know, people that have, especially something like this, they should get either a half price or they should get, you know, some type of compensation for having to fly out for a child that was murdered. And so she got me $2,000 back. And then we did fight also with the Portland, her death certificate. Unfortunately, Jennifer's death certificate says shot by another person. His death certificate says that he was suicide by 35 millimeter, whatever it was, gun shot to the head. Both had the same address, both were married, had the same name, but that's one thing I won't do, though, is I won't use his name. I made sure that it was Jennifer Lynch and not the married name, so that I named everything. But Susan helped me in that aspect, too.
It's an honor to interview you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.